The sun was bright in London that morning. People lined the streets near Westminster Abbey. They waited to see Prince William, Princess Kate, and their 3 children. Everyone was excited. This was the first time in months that the whole family would be at a big royal event together. Westminster Abbey stood tall and grand. Its big stone walls had seen many royal events over hundreds of years. This was where Prince William and Kate got married in 2011. Their wedding had been watched by millions of people around the world. Now they were coming back with their children for another special ceremony. At 10:15 in the morning, royal cars arrived at the Abbey. The crowd cheered as they saw the first car stop. Prince William stepped out first. He wore a dark blue suit and smiled at the people. He looked happy but also serious. Today was an important day. Princess Kate came out next. She wore a beautiful light blue dress that matched her famous blue ring. She looked healthy and strong, which made many people happy. Kate had been sick with cancer last year, but now she was in remission. Her brown hair shone in the sunlight as she waved to the crowd. Then came the children. Prince George, who was 11 years old, came out first. He looked very much like his father. He wore a small suit and walked with his back straight. He was learning how to be a prince. Princess Charlotte, who was 9, followed her big brother. She looked pretty in her dress. She gave a small wave to the people, just like her mother had taught her. Last came little Prince Louis, who was 7 years old. He jumped out of the car with energy. He had lost his 2 front teeth recently. This made his smile look funny and cute. He pointed at things and asked questions. His father had to remind him to stand still. "Look at how big they've grown," said a woman in the crowd. "Prince Louis is so cute," said another person, taking pictures with their phone. As the family walked toward the Abbey door, they were met by important church people. The Dean of Westminster welcomed them with a bow. He would lead the ceremony today. Westminster Abbey was a special place for the royal family. 16 royal weddings had happened there over 900 years. Inside, the Abbey was cool and quiet. Sunlight came through the colored glass windows. It made patterns on the stone floor. The family walked down the long aisle. Many important people were already seated. They stood up when the royal family entered. The children looked around with big eyes. The Abbey was huge, with high ceilings and old statues. Prince Louis whispered something to his mother. She smiled and put her finger to her lips to remind him to be quiet. The family sat in special seats at the front. Prince William helped the children know what to do. They had practiced at home. Prince George sat tall and still. Princess Charlotte folded her hands neatly in her lap. Prince Louis tried to sit still but kept looking around at everything. The ceremony was about to begin. The choir started to sing. Their voices filled the big space with beautiful music. The royal family listened carefully. This was an important day for them and for the country. The children were learning about their royal duties. They were part of a long history that went back many years. Today they were making new memories in the same place where their parents had once promised to love each other forever. As the ceremony continued, the bells of Westminster Abbey rang out across London. The sound was beautiful and old, just like the traditions being honored today. The royal family sat in the front row, listening to the music and prayers. The main part of the ceremony began. An important man in church clothes stood up and spoke about duty and service. These were big words, but Prince George seemed to understand. He nodded seriously at some parts. Princess Charlotte watched everything with wide eyes. Prince Louis tried to copy his brother and sister, but sometimes he would wiggle in his seat. Kate gently placed her hand on Louis's knee when he moved too much. She was good at keeping the children calm during long events. Since getting better from her illness, she had been slowly returning to royal duties. William looked at his family with pride. They were doing well today. Halfway through the ceremony, everyone stood up to sing. The music filled the huge church. Charlotte liked to sing, and her voice could be heard, sweet and clear. Louis didn't know all the words but tried his best to join in. George sang perfectly, just as he had been taught. After the singing, There was a special moment when the children were asked to come forward. This part had been planned to include them. Just like at the king's coronation, the children had been practicing their roles for this ceremony during rehearsals. They walked carefully to the front, with George leading the way. An old man with white hair handed each child a small gift. It was a way to thank them for being part of the ceremony. George accepted his with a small bow, just as he had practiced. Charlotte did a perfect little curtsy that made people smile. Louis took his gift with 2 hands and said thank you in a loud, clear voice that echoed in the quiet church. As they returned to their seats, a funny thing happened. Louis tripped a little on the carpet. He didn't fall, but his gift almost did. He caught it just in time, with quick hands. Some people watching held their breath, but then smiled when they saw he was okay. Louis gave everyone a big grin, showing the gap where his front teeth used to be. After the formal parts were over, the family moved to another room in the abbey for a small party. There were cakes and drinks for the special guests. At events like this, William often mentioned how the children would have loved certain parts. Today, they were actually here to enjoy it themselves. The children were allowed to move around more freely now. Charlotte talked to some nice ladies who admired her dress. George spoke politely with some important men in uniforms. Louis found some other children to play with in a corner of the room. Kate chatted with people she knew. She looked relaxed and happy. After 14 years of marriage to William, she was very good at these royal events. People still remembered how she had been Kate Middleton before becoming a princess. Now she was helping her children learn the same royal skills. William kept checking on his family while talking to guests. He wanted to make sure everyone was comfortable. At one point, he saw Louis starting to get tired. Royal events were long for a 7-year-old boy. William went over and knelt down to speak to his son. He said something that made Louis laugh. As the reception was ending, the family gathered together again. They thanked the hosts and prepared to leave. They would return to their home where they could relax and be just a normal family of 5. But for today, they had shown the world how the young royal family was growing up, learning their duties, and carrying on traditions that were hundreds of years old. It was time to leave Westminster Abbey. The royal family walked down the long aisle toward the big doors. Many people watched them go. Outside, the crowd had grown even bigger. People had been waiting for hours just to see the family for a few seconds. The family stepped out into the sunshine. Camera flashes went off everywhere. This historic building had seen many royal moments over the years, including William and Kate's own wedding. Now they were creating new memories with their children. The crowd cheered loudly when they appeared. William and Kate waved to the people. The children followed their parents' example. George waved politely, just like his father. Charlotte gave a perfect princess wave with her small hand. Louis waved with big arm movements that made people laugh and cheer more. A group of school children stood nearby singing a special song. The royal family stopped to listen. Music was always an important part of royal ceremonies. Kate bent down and spoke to a little girl who gave her flowers. The girl looked very happy to meet a real princess. As they walked toward their car, something unexpected happened. A small dog ran out from the crowd. It was on a leash, but it had pulled away from its owner. The dog ran right up to Louis, who laughed with delight. William quickly helped the dog's owner catch the animal. Everyone smiled at this funny moment. That wasn't in the plan, William joked to the crowd. People laughed. These natural moments made the royal family seem more real to people. The family got into their car, but they didn't leave right away. William rolled down his window to thank the police officers who had helped with the event. Kate showed her usual kindness by also thanking the staff who had worked so hard to make the day special. As the car pulled away, Louis pressed his face against the window and waved goodbye. People took pictures and videos with their phones. These would be shared all over the world in just minutes. On the drive home, the family relaxed. The children told their parents what they liked best about the day. They were heading back to their home in Windsor, where they lived most of the time. The children went to school nearby. Their home life was much more normal than people might think. "You all did very well today," Kate told the children. "I'm proud of you." George asked questions about the ceremony. He wanted to understand everything. He knew that one day he would be king. Charlotte talked about the music and the pretty windows in the church. Louis was already getting sleepy. Big royal events were tiring for a young boy. When they reached home, the staff greeted them at the door. Unlike at public events, at home they could just be a normal family. William and Kate worked hard to give their children as normal a life as possible. The children changed out of their fancy clothes and into regular play clothes. Later that evening, while the children played, William and Kate talked about the day. Their relationship had grown stronger during their 14 years of marriage. They had faced many challenges together, including Kate's recent illness, but days like today reminded them of the good parts of royal life. On the news that night, people talked about how well-behaved the royal children had been. They showed pictures of the family at the ceremony. The public loved seeing glimpses of the young prince and princesses growing up. People said that William and Kate were doing a good job as parents. Back at home, none of this mattered to the royal children. George was reading a book. Charlotte was drawing a picture. Louis was playing with his toys. They were just being normal children after a very special day. The royal family left Westminster Abbey and stepped outside into the bright sunshine. This beautiful old building had seen many important royal events over hundreds of years, including William and Kate's own wedding. Now they were making new memories with their 3 children. Crowds of people waited outside. They had been standing there for hours, hoping to see the royal family. When William, Kate, and the children appeared, everyone cheered and clapped. People held up their phones to take pictures. "They look so happy together," said one woman in the crowd. "The children have grown so much," said another man. William waved to the people with a big smile. Kate stood close to him, also waving. After 14 years of marriage, they still looked very happy together. Their children copied their parents. George waved politely and stood tall like his father. Charlotte gave a perfect little princess wave. Louis waved with both hands and jumped up and down with excitement. A group of children from a local school were waiting with flowers. A small girl with red hair walked up to Kate and gave her a pretty bunch of flowers. Kate bent down to talk to the little girl. She asked her name and thanked her for the beautiful gift. The girl was so happy that she gave Kate a big hug. This made everyone say, "Aw." Kate hugged the girl back. William was talking to some important people nearby. He kept looking over to check on his family. George stayed close to his father, listening to the grown-up talk. He wanted to learn everything about being a royal. Charlotte found another little girl her age in the crowd. They talked through the security barrier. Charlotte pointed to the other girl's pretty hair clips, and the girl smiled shyly. Even at official events, Charlotte showed her friendly nature. Louis was getting tired. It had been a long day for a 7-year-old boy. He leaned against his mother and rubbed his eyes. Kate put her arm around him and whispered something in his ear that made him smile. A funny thing happened next. A man in the crowd had brought his dog. The dog got very excited when it saw the royal family and started barking happily. Louis perked up right away. He loved animals. He pointed at the dog and said something to his mother. Kate smiled and nodded. The dog's owner waved at Louis, who waved back with a big grin. It was time to leave. The royal cars waited by the road. Before they got in, William thanked all the police officers and security people who had helped keep everyone safe. Kate also showed her kindness by thanking the staff who had worked hard to make the day special. As they got into their car, Louis turned around for one last wave. His gap-toothed smile made everyone laugh. The car doors closed, and the royal family was on their way home. Inside the car, the family relaxed. The formal part of their day was over. They were heading back to their home in Windsor, where they lived most of the time. Their children went to school nearby. "You all did so well today," Kate said to the children. "I'm very proud of you. Did I wave the right way?" Louis asked. "You were perfect," William told him with a smile. "I like the singing best," said Charlotte. "Can we sing in church again soon?" "I want to learn more about the Abbey," said George. "It has so much history." When they got home, the children changed out of their fancy clothes. Now they could just be normal kids again. William and Kate worked hard to give their children as normal a life as possible, despite being royals. That evening, the family ate dinner together in their kitchen. They talked about their day. Later, William read a bedtime story to Louis, while Kate helped Charlotte and George get ready for bed. It had been a big day full of royal duties, but now they were just a family, like many others across the country. On the news that night, people saw pictures of the royal family at Westminster Abbey. The reporters talked about how well the children had behaved and how happy the family looked together. The public loved seeing glimpses of the young princes and princess growing up. Tomorrow would be another day, with school for the children and more royal duties for William and Kate. But they would always remember this special day at Westminster Abbey, where they had shown the world their growing family and their love for each other. The next morning, news about the royal family's visit to Westminster Abbey was everywhere. Pictures of William, Kate, and their 3 children appeared in newspapers and on websites around the world. People loved seeing the young family together at such an important place. At breakfast time in their Windsor home, the family sat around the kitchen table. Kate made toast, while William poured juice for the children. Though they were royals, they tried to have normal morning routines just like other families. George was reading a history book about Westminster Abbey. He wanted to learn more after yesterday's visit. "Did you know that 16 kings and queens are buried there?" George told his family. He was always full of interesting facts. Charlotte was drawing a picture of the Abbey. She had a good memory for details and was adding the colored glass windows she had seen. Louis was playing with his cereal, making shapes in the milk with his spoon. The phone rang. William answered it. It was his father, King Charles, calling to say he had seen the pictures from yesterday's event. He was proud of how well everyone had done, especially the children. "Grandpa wants to talk to you," William said, handing the phone to the children one by one. After breakfast, the children got ready for school. They attended a school near their Windsor home. William and Kate tried to take them to school themselves whenever they could, just like other parents. As they were getting into the car, a royal worker came with some letters. Many people had written to say how much they enjoyed seeing the family at Westminster Abbey. Some had sent drawings and cards for the children. The family would read these later. At school, the other children were excited to see George, Charlotte, and Louis. Their classmates had watched them on TV yesterday. "Were you scared with all those people watching?" one boy asked George. "Not really," George said. "We practice for big events." Charlotte's friends wanted to know about her pretty dress and if she had met any princesses from other countries. Louis showed his friends how he had waved to the crowd, making big movements with his arms that made everyone laugh. Back at home, William and Kate had work to do. Being royal meant they supported many charities and good causes. Today they had meetings about helping children who were sick or poor. The Westminster Abbey event had been about a charity that built schools in poor countries. Kate looked at some of the pictures from yesterday. There was a lovely one of all 5 of them: William, Kate, George, Charlotte, and Louis, standing together on the steps of the Abbey. She decided to frame this picture for their home. In the afternoon, the children came home from school. They had homework to do, but first they wanted to show their parents the cards they had made in class. Their teachers had asked them to draw pictures of their day at Westminster Abbey. "Look, I drew the big doors and all the people," said Charlotte, showing her colorful picture. "I drew the dog that barked at us," said Louis with a giggle. George had written a story about the history of the Abbey. His teacher had been very impressed. Later, the family sat in their living room, looking at the letters people had sent them. Many people wrote how happy they were to see Kate looking so healthy after her illness. Others said how well behaved the children were and how they were growing up so fast. "People are very kind," said Kate, reading one letter from an old woman who had waited 5 hours just to see them for a few seconds. A royal helper brought in a special package. It was from the Dean of Westminster. He had sent them a book about the Abbey and some pictures taken during their visit that weren't in the newspapers. There was a lovely one of Louis looking up at the high ceiling with his mouth open in wonder. As evening came, the family had dinner together. They talked about their day and about yesterday's big event. Though they had been married for 14 years and had been to many royal events, William and Kate still found these occasions special. Now they were teaching their children about royal duties and the joy of meeting people. Before bedtime, Louis asked a question that made everyone smile. "When I grow up, will I have to go to lots of places like the Abbey?" "Yes," said William, "but you'll have us with you until you're ready to go by yourself." Louis thought about this for a moment, then nodded. He was already learning what it meant to be part of the royal family. A week after the Westminster Abbey ceremony, the royal family was still getting letters and messages from people. Many folks had been touched by seeing William, Kate, and their 3 children together at such an important event. The palace workers who sorted the mail were surprised by how many children had sent drawings to Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. On this sunny morning, the family was having a special breakfast together. William had mentioned in a recent interview how important family time was to them. They tried to have meals together whenever they could, even with their busy royal schedules. "Can we look at the pictures from the Abbey again?" asked Charlotte as she finished her toast. Kate nodded and brought out a photo album. The palace photographers had sent them a set of official pictures. There were beautiful shots of the family standing together, sitting in the Abbey, and talking with guests afterward. The children loved seeing themselves in the fancy setting. "Look at my face when I saw the big ceiling." Louis laughed, pointing to a picture where his mouth was open in wonder. "And here's when Charlotte was singing," said Kate. "You have such a lovely voice, darling." Charlotte smiled shyly. She loved music but didn't like too much attention. George was looking at the more formal pictures. "When I'm king, will I have to go to Westminster Abbey a lot?" he asked his father. "Yes, it's an important place for our family," William explained in simple words. He told George how kings and queens had been crowned there for hundreds of years. George nodded seriously, taking in this information about his future. After breakfast, Kate took the children into the garden. It was a beautiful day, and they needed some active playtime after sitting still so well at the ceremony. Their home in Windsor had big gardens where the children could run and play safely. Louis kicked a ball around with energy. Charlotte picked flowers to make a crown. George was playing with a model airplane, making it fly over the trees. Kate watched them with a happy smile. After her time being sick, she was grateful for these simple family moments. William joined them later, carrying some papers. As a working royal, he always had things to read and sign, but he put these aside to play with the children for a while. He kicked the ball with Louis, admired Charlotte's flower crown, and helped George with his airplane. "The people at the charity sent us a thank you letter," William told Kate when the children were busy playing. "They said our visit to the Abbey helped them raise lots of money for the new schools they're building." Kate was pleased. "That's wonderful news. It makes all the formal parts worth it, doesn't it?" William nodded. He had said in interviews that he wanted to show his children how royal work could help others. This was a good example of that. Later that day, the family had some visitors. Kate's parents, Carol and Michael Middleton, came to see them. They lived not far away and often visited their grandchildren. They brought small gifts, books for George, art supplies for Charlotte, and a toy car for Louis. "We saw you all on television at the Abbey," said Carol, hugging her grandchildren. "You looked so grown up." The children told their grandparents all about the day, the music, the big building, the important people they had met. Louis told a funny story about nearly dropping his special gift, which made everyone laugh. That evening, after the grandparents had gone home and the children were getting ready for bed, William and Kate talked about future events. There would be more ceremonies, more public appearances. After 14 years of marriage, they had learned to balance their royal duties with family life. "I think the children are learning that balance too," said Kate. "They understand when they need to be formal and when they can just be kids." William agreed. He was proud of his family. The Westminster Abbey ceremony had been a success, but the happy days at home afterward were just as important. This was the life they had created together, part royal duty, part normal family. It wasn't always easy, but moments like today made it all worthwhile. As the sun set over Windsor, the royal family finished another day together. Tomorrow would bring new duties and challenges, but they would face them together, just as they had at Westminster Abbey. 2 weeks had passed since the Westminster Abbey ceremony. The royal family was back to their regular routine. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis were at school during the day. William and Kate worked on their royal duties, but the memory of that special day stayed with them all. On this particular morning, the family was getting ready for another day. The children were eating breakfast before school. William was checking his phone for messages. Kate was making sure everyone had what they needed for the day. "Look at this," William said to Kate. He showed her his phone. Someone had made a short video of the children at Westminster Abbey. It had become very popular online. People loved seeing the young royals at such a historic place. "Can we see?" asked Charlotte. William showed the children the video. There they were, walking into the Abbey, sitting nicely during the ceremony, and waving to people afterward. "I look so small next to those big doors," said Louis, pointing at himself in the video. "You all looked perfect," Kate told them. She had been worried about attending such a big event after her illness, but everything had gone well. The children had made her and William proud. After the children left for school, William and Kate had a meeting with their staff. They were planning future events. The success of the Westminster Abbey ceremony meant they were thinking about including the children in more family appearances. "George is ready for more public duties," said William. "He's old enough to understand what we're doing and why." "Charlotte, too," Kate agreed. "She's so good with people. But I think Louis is still a bit young for too many formal events." Their staff took notes and made suggestions. Being royal meant planning everything carefully. Nothing happened by chance. Each appearance, each outfit, each speech was thought about ahead of time. Later that day, William had a surprise for the family. When the children came home from school, he showed them something special. It was a beautiful picture frame with a photo from Westminster Abbey inside. The picture showed all 5 of them standing together on the steps of the Abbey. They looked happy and close as a family. "This is for our sitting room," William said, "to help us remember the day." The children were excited to see the gift. George noticed something written on the back of the frame. It was the date of their visit and a short message. "The Wales family at Westminster Abbey, making history together." That evening, they hung the picture on the wall. It looked perfect next to their other family photos. Though they were royal, they were also just a family who loved being together. After dinner, they sat in the living room. Charlotte had piano practice. She was learning a new song and wanted to show her parents. Music was important in the royal family. George was reading a history book about kings and queens. Louis was building something with colorful blocks on the floor. The song "I'm Learning" was played at Westminster Abbey once. Charlotte told them proudly before she began to play. Kate and William listened with happy faces as their daughter played. Even George looked up from his book to listen. Louis stopped building to watch his sister. "That was beautiful, darling," said Kate when Charlotte finished. Later, when it was time for bed, Louis asked for a story about Westminster Abbey. William smiled and sat on the edge of his son's bed. "Once upon a time," he began, "there was a very old church called Westminster Abbey. Kings and queens had been going there for hundreds of years." Louis listened with wide eyes as his father told a simple story about the Abbey's history. George and Charlotte came in to listen too. William told them how kings and queens had been crowned there since long ago. He told them about his own wedding to their mother at the same place. "And now you 3 have been there too." William finished. "You're part of that long history." The children thought about this as they went to sleep. Even at their young ages, they were beginning to understand what made their family special. They were part of a story that had been going on for hundreds of years. Kate and William looked in on their sleeping children before going to bed themselves. After 14 years of marriage, they were still learning and growing as parents and as royals. Days like the one at Westminster Abbey helped them teach their children about duty, history, and being part of the royal family. Tomorrow would be another normal day. School, work, family time. But the picture on their wall would remind them of their special day at Westminster Abbey, when they all stood together in that historic place. A month had passed since the Westminster Abbey ceremony. The royal family had been busy with many activities. Prince William and Princess Kate had traveled to Scotland for their wedding anniversary. They had taken the children with them for a short family trip after the official events. Now they were back home, and life had settled into its normal pattern. On this warm spring morning, Kate was looking through a special package that had just arrived. It was from the charity they had supported at the Westminster Abbey ceremony. "William, look at this," Kate called to her husband, who was helping Louis tie his shoes. "The charity sent us pictures of the new school they're building. They say our visit to the Abbey helped them raise enough money to finish it early." William came over with Louis to look at the pictures. They showed a half-built school in a poor village. There were smiling children standing near the building, holding a sign that said, "Thank you," in big colorful letters. "Those children look happy," said Louis, pointing at the picture. "They will have a new school soon, thanks to the money people gave after seeing us at Westminster Abbey," William explained to his son in simple words. George and Charlotte joined them to look at the pictures. The family sat together at the kitchen table, talking about how their royal duties could help other people. Even at their young ages, the children were learning that being royal wasn't just about ceremonies and fancy clothes. It was about helping others. "Can we visit their school someday?" asked Charlotte. She liked meeting new people, especially other children. "Maybe when it's finished," Kate said. "That would be a nice trip." Later that day, the children were at school, and William and Kate had a meeting with their staff. They were looking at pictures from the Westminster Abbey ceremony and planning which ones to share with the public. They had a tradition of sharing family photos on special occasions. "I like this one of Louis looking up at the ceiling," said Kate, pointing to a picture. "His face shows exactly how amazing the Abbey is." "And this one of Charlotte singing with the choir is lovely," added William. "George looks so grown up in this picture," Kate said with a small sigh. "He's becoming more like you every day." William smiled at his wife. After 14 years of marriage, they still enjoyed working together and raising their children. The Westminster Abbey ceremony had been special because it was one of the first big events they had all attended together as a family. That afternoon, something exciting happened. A letter arrived from the Dean of Westminster. He invited the family to a special tour of the Abbey when it was closed to the public. They could see parts that most visitors never got to see. When the children came home from school, William and Kate told them about the invitation. "Will we see where the kings are buried?" asked George. He was very interested in royal history. "Can we go up in the high tower?" asked Charlotte. She had noticed the tall towers of the Abbey during their visit. "Are there secret rooms?" asked Louis. He loved adventures and hidden places. William explained that Westminster Abbey had many special areas. There were tombs of kings and queens, beautiful chapels, and historic rooms. The dean wanted to show them these places because the family had done so well during the ceremony. The children were excited about this special invitation. They started making lists of what they wanted to see. Though they were royal, in many ways they were just like other children their age, curious and eager for new experiences. That evening, as Kate was putting the younger children to bed, Louis had a question. "Money, are we special because we're royal?" Kate thought carefully before answering. She wanted her children to understand their place in the world without becoming proud. "We're lucky to have opportunities like visiting Westminster Abbey," she said, "but every person is special in their own way. Being royal means we have a job to do, helping others and representing our country." Louis nodded, thinking about this answer. Even at 7 years old, he was starting to understand what it meant to be part of the royal family. Meanwhile, William was helping George with a school project about British history. George had chosen to write about Westminster Abbey. His classmates and teachers had been impressed that he had visited the Abbey for an official ceremony. "Dad, when you and Mum got married at Westminster Abbey, were you scared with all those people watching?" George asked. William smiled at his son's question. "A little bit," he admitted, "but I was mostly happy because I was marrying your mother. Sometimes the most important moments happen in front of many people when you're royal." As the family prepared for their private tour of the Abbey, they looked forward to creating more memories in this historic place that had been so important to their family for generations. The Westminster Abbey ceremony had been just one day, but its effects continued to touch their lives in many small, meaningful ways. The day had finally come for the royal family's private tour of Westminster Abbey. The ancient building stood tall and grand as it had for hundreds of years. Early in the morning, before the Abbey opened to the public, a black car pulled up to a side door. Prince William, Princess Kate, and their 3 children stepped out. The Dean of Westminster greeted them with a warm smile. He was the same man who had led the ceremony a month ago. This time, he wore simple clothes instead of his formal church robes. "Welcome back to the Abbey," he said to the family. "Today you can explore at your own pace." No crowds, no cameras. The children were excited. This was different from their last visit. George, Charlotte, and Louis had been to the Abbey for the official ceremony, but today they could see the hidden parts that most visitors never saw. "Can we see the secret places now?" asked Louis, jumping up and down. The Dean laughed. "Yes, young prince. We have many special areas to show you." They started in the main part of the Abbey. Without the crowds, it looked even bigger. Their footsteps echoed on the stone floor. The morning sun came through the colored glass windows, making patterns of light on the walls. "This building is over 700 years old," the Dean told them. "Kings and queens have been crowned here since 1066. George listened carefully. He was taking mental notes for his school project. He had chosen to write about Westminster Abbey for his history class. Charlotte looked up at the high ceiling, trying to count all the stone figures carved there. Louis held his mother's hand, his eyes wide with wonder. The Dean took them to a special door hidden behind a wooden panel. It led to a narrow stone staircase that wound up inside one of the walls. "These stairs go up to the tower," he explained. "It's quite a climb." The family started up the stairs. William went first, then George, then Charlotte. Kate came next with Louis. The stairs were steep and curved around and around. The higher they climbed, the more they could feel the history of the building around them. Finally, they'd reached the top. They were in a small stone room with windows on all sides. The view was amazing. They could see all of London spread out below them. "Look, I can see Buckingham Palace," said Charlotte, pointing. "And the River Thames," added George. Louis pressed his face against the glass. "The people look like ants from here." Kate and William stood back, watching their children's excitement. After 14 years of marriage, these family moments were still special to them. After the tower, the Dean took them to a hidden chapel that few people ever saw. It was small but beautiful, with old paintings on the walls and colored glass in the windows. "This is where some monks used to pray hundreds of years ago," the Dean explained in simple words the children could understand. Next, they visited the place where the royal wedding of William and Kate had taken place in 2011. The children had seen pictures of this day, but now they stood in the exact spot where their parents had said, "I do." "You were standing right here, Daddy?" asked Charlotte. "Yes," said William. "And then your mother walked down the aisle in her beautiful white dress." The Dean showed them the royal tombs where kings and queens were buried. This part was a bit scary for Louis, but George found it very interesting. He read the names on the stone tombs, recognizing many from his history books. Their last stop was a special room where the abbey kept its treasures. There were old books, gold cups, and beautiful cloth. The dean showed them a golden spoon that had been used in coronations for hundreds of years. "Will this be used when you become king, Dad?" asked George quietly. William nodded. "And someday, a long time from now, it will be used when you become king too." As they finished their tour, the dean had a surprise for them. He gave each child a small stone that had fallen from the abbey during repairs. "Now you each have a piece of Westminster Abbey to keep," he said. The children thanked him for this special gift. They would keep these stones in their rooms as reminders of this day. As they left the abbey, the family felt a new connection to this historic place. It wasn't just a fancy building for ceremonies anymore. It was a place full of stories and history that was part of their family's past and future. Back in their car, Louis held up his piece of Westminster Abbey stone. "This is the best treasure ever," he said with a big smile. William and Kate exchanged happy glances. Days like today helped their children understand their royal heritage in a fun and meaningful way. The Westminster Abbey ceremony had been important, but this private family visit had made the historic building come alive for George, Charlotte, and Louis in a way no formal event could do. 6 months had passed since the royal family's visit to Westminster Abbey. The seasons had changed from spring to summer and now to fall. The experience at the Abbey had created lasting memories for Prince William, Princess Kate, and their 3 children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. On this cool autumn day, the family was at home looking through a special book that had just arrived. It was a beautiful photo book about Westminster Abbey. The dean had sent it as a gift. Inside were pictures of their ceremony day and their private tour, along with information about the Abbey's history. "Look, there I am looking at the ceiling," said Louis, pointing to a picture of himself with his head tilted all the way back. Everyone laughed at his excited expression. George was reading the facts about the Abbey with great interest. He had become quite knowledgeable about the building where so many kings and queens had been crowned. His school project about Westminster Abbey had received the highest mark in this class. "Did you know that 16 royal weddings have happened at the Abbey?" George told his family, "including yours, Mum and Dad." William smiled at the mention of their wedding day. April 29, 2011 had been one of the happiest days of his life when Kate walked down the aisle of Westminster Abbey in her beautiful white dress. Now, years later, their children had created their own memories in that same historic place. Charlotte was looking at pictures of the choir. Since their visit, she had joined her school's singing group. She remembered the beautiful music at the Abbey and wanted to learn more about singing. "Can we go back to the Abbey sometime?" she asked. "I want to hear the choir sing again." "We will," Kate promised. "The Abbey is always part of our lives." While the children were looking at the book, William received an important phone call. It was about a new project connected to the charity they had supported at the Westminster Abbey ceremony. The school they had helped build was now finished, and they wanted the royal family to visit it, not in person, but through a video call. When William told the family about this, the children were excited. They would get to see the actual school that had been built because of their ceremony at the Abbey. The next day, they all gathered in William's office for the video call. On the screen appeared a bright, new building with many smiling children standing in front. A teacher stepped forward to speak. "Your Royal Highnesses, we want to thank you for helping us build this school. The ceremony at Westminster Abbey brought attention to our cause and helped us raise the money we needed." The teacher showed them around the school through the camera. There were new classrooms with desks and books. There was a playground outside where children could play. There was even a small library named after the royal family. "We named our library the Cambridge Room to honor your family's help," the teacher explained, using the name the family had used before becoming the Wales family. The royal children asked questions about the new school. They wanted to know what subjects the children learned and what games they played. The conversation went back and forth, with children from two very different worlds finding things they had in common. After the call ended, the family talked about what they had seen. William and Kate used these moments to teach their children about helping others and using their royal position to do good in the world. The ceremony at Westminster Abbey seemed like just one day. William said to his children, "But look at the good things that have happened because of it. A whole school has been built that will help children for many years." That evening, as Kate was putting the younger children to bed, Louis had a thoughtful question. "Mummy, when we go to places like Westminster Abbey, do we help make the world better?" Kate smiled at her youngest son's deep question. "Yes, Louis," she said. "When people see us caring about something, they often want to help too. That's one of the most important parts of being royal." Later, when all three children were asleep, William and Kate sat together looking at family photos. Their 14 years of marriage had seen many changes, challenges, and joys. The Westminster Abbey ceremony was just one of many important moments they had shared. "I'm proud of how the children handled themselves at the Abbey," William said. "They're learning what it means to be royal." Kate nodded. "After everything we've been through this year with my health, it means so much to see them growing and thriving." As they closed the photo album, they knew that Westminster Abbey would always be a special place for their family. It was where they had married, where kings and queens of the past had been crowned, and now where their children had taken another step in their royal journey. The story of the royal family and Westminster Abbey would continue for generations to come. One day, George would walk those ancient aisles as king. Charlotte and Louis would have their own important roles to play. But for now, they were simply a family, creating memories together that would last a lifetime.